of man's first disobedience, and the fruit of that forbidden tree whose mortal taste brought death into the world. Of the beginning. Say first, what cause moved man, favored of heaven so highly, to fall off from their Creator and transgress his will? Who first seduced them to that foul revolt?
The infernal serpent. He it was whose guile, stirred by envy and revenge, deceived the mother of mankind. One time his pride had cast him out from heaven. He trusted to have equaled the Most High, and with ambitious aim against the throne and monarchy of God, raised impious war in heaven. I, the almighty power, hurled he headlong, flaming from the ethereal skies with hideous ruin to bottomless perdition, there to dwell in chains and fire.
But his doom reserved him to more wrath, for now the thought both of lost happiness and lasting pain torments him.
He views the dismal situation, waste and wild, a dungeon horrible, no light but rather darkness visible. And rest can never dwell, hope never comes.
Torture without end.
Such place eternal justice had prepared for those rebellious.
Here their prison ordained, and their portion set as far removed from my God and light of heaven.
And here their counsel meet in saintship to pursue vain war with heaven.
Deities of heaven, I give not heaven for lost. From this descent, we will appear more glorious and more dread than from no fall, and trust to fear no second fate. A happier state in heaven might draw envy from each inferior. But who here will envy whom the highest place exposes and condemns to a greater share of endless pain? Where there is no good for which to strive, no strife can grow, but none sure will claim in hell precedence. None whose portion is so small of present pain will with ambitious mind covet more. To this advantage then, to union, firm faith and firm accord, more than can be in heaven, we now return to claim our just inheritance of old. By what best way? Whether open war or covert guile, we now debate. Who can advise may speak.
I, Moloch, sceptered king, strongest and fiercest spirit who fought in heaven, my sentence is for open war. Let those contrive who they need, or when they need, not now. For while they sit contriving shall rest, millions that stand at arms sit lingering here, heaven's fugitives. And accept this dark, opprobrious den of shame? No, let us rather choose, armed with hellfire and fury, all at once to force resistless way, turning our torches into horrid arms against the torturer. He shall hear infernal thunder, and see black fires and horror shock with rage against his angels, and his throne itself.
The way seems difficult and steep to scale against our higher foe.
The ascent is easy.
The event is feared. Should we again provoke our stronger, in some worse way his wrath may find to our destruction.
What can be worse than to dwell here driven out from bliss, condemned to this abhorrent deep to utter woe, where pains of unextinguishable fires must exercise us without hope of end, the vassals of his anger. More destroyed, we should be quiet, abolished, and expire. What fear we then? What doubt we to incense his utmost ire? The height enraged will either quite consume us, and reduce to nothing this misery, or, if our bodies indeed be divine, and cannot cease to be, we are at worst on this side nothing, and by proof, we feel our power sufficient to disturb his heavens. If not victory, there is yet revenge.
I, Belial,
Oh, false and hollow!
Fair person lost not heaven.
I should be much for open war, O peers, if what was urged in Brother Moloch's main reason to persuade immediate war did not dissuade me most. Revenge? The towers of heaven are filled with armed watch, rendering all access impregnable. Oft on the bordering deep encamp their legions, or with obscure wing scout far and wide into the realm of night, scorning surprise. Yet our great enemy would on his throne sit unpolluted and victorious. Thus repulsed, our final hope is flat despair. We must exasperate the Almighty to spend all his rage. And that must be our cure? To be no more? What a sad cure.
What can we suffer more? What can we suffer worse?
Rattling whirlwinds, or forever sunk under yon boiling ocean, there to converse with everlasting groans, wrapped in chains, unrespited, unpitied, unretrieved. This would be worse. War, therefore, open or concealed, alike my voice dissuades. For what can force or guile do to him whose eye views all things at one view? He who sits to deride all our plots and wiles.
Shall we then live thus vile? The race of heaven thus trampled? Thus expelled to suffer here in chains and torments?
Better these than worse by my advice. For what flight the future days may bring, what chance, what change is worth waiting. Let us not procure to ourselves more woe.
Thus Belial counsels ignoble ease and peaceful sloth, not peace.
What place can be for us within heaven's bound, unless heaven's Lord supremely overpower? Suppose he should relent and publish grace to all on promise made with new subjection. With what eyes could we stand in his presence humble and receive strict laws imposed to celebrate his throne with warbled hymns, and to his Godhead sing forced hallelujahs while he lordly sits, our envied sovereign? Servile offerings, this be our task in heaven, this our delight. How wearisome, an eternity so spent in worship paid to him whom we hate. Let us not then pursue by force the impossible. Rather seek we our own good from ourselves free and to none accountable, preferring hard liberty to the easy yoke of servile pomp. Our greatness will appear when we can create and thrive on evil and work ease out of pain through labor and endurance. This deep world of darkness wants not her hidden lusted gems and gold. Our torments may in length of time become our elements.
Mammon, the least direct spirit who fell from heaven, for even in heaven his looks and thoughts were always downward bent, admiring more the riches of heaven's pavement and trodden gold than aught divine or wholly else enjoyed in vision beatific.
All things invite to peaceful counsel and to the settled state of order. I dismiss all thoughts of war. You have what I advise.
Beelzebub, pillar of state and princely council, majestic though in ruin.
Thrones and imperial powers, offspring of heaven, ethereal virtues. For these titles must we now renounce, and changing style be called princes of hell? The popular vote inclines here to continue, and to build up here in heaven a growing empire. While we dream, know that the King of heaven hath doomed this place our dungeon, not our safe retreat beyond his potent arm, but to remain in strictest bondage, his captive multitude. For he, be sure, in height or depth, still first and last remains sole king, and of his kingdom he shall lose no part by our revolt. Over hell extends his territory, and with iron scepter he rules us here as in heaven. What? Sit we then, projecting peace and war? War hath foiled us with terrible loss. What if there be some easier enterprise? There is another place, if the ancient and prophetic in heaven err not, another world, the happy seat of some new force named man, to be created like to us, though less in power and excellence, but favored more of him who rules above. Thither let us bend all our thoughts to learn what creatures there inhabit, of what mode, substance, how endued, and what their power, and where their weakness, how tempted best, by force or subtlety. Though heaven be shut, and heaven's high arbitrator sits secure in his own strength, this place may lie exposed. Here perhaps some advantageous act may be achieved, either by hellfire to waste his whole creation, or possess all as our own, or seduce them to our party, that their God may prove their foe, and with repenting hand abolish his own works. Now this would surpass common revenge, and interrupt his joy, and our joy upraise at his disturbance. When his darling sons hurl headlong to partake with us, and curse their frail original and faded bliss. Faded so soon. Advise if you think this be worth attempting, or to remain in darkness here, hatching vain empires.
Another war they dread worse than hell, so much the fear of thunder and the sword.
And no less desire to found your nether empire.
Cast your lots.
His sentence, please.
Well have ye judged. Well ended long debate, and great things accomplished. But whom shall we send in search of this new world? And whom shall we find sufficient?
Progeny of heaven, imperial thrones. Long is the way and hard that out of hell leads up to light. Our prison strong, yet I should ill become this throne, O peers, if difficulty or danger could deter me from attempting. Wherefore do I accept these royalties? Go therefore, mighty powers, terror of heaven though fallen, intended home what best may ease the present misery and render hell more tolerable. Of this enterprise none shall partake with me.
Towards the gates of hell explores his solitary flight. Sometimes he scours the right-hand coast, and sometimes the left. Now shaves with level wing the deep, up to the fiery concave touring high. At last appear thrice threefold gates, threefold brass, 3 of iron, and 3 of adamantine rock, impenetrable, impaled with circling fire, yet unconsumed. And before the gates, on either side, there sat a formidable shape.
What art thou that darest attempt to thwart my way to yonder gate? Retire, or taste thy folly learned by proof hell-born, not to contend with spirits of heaven.
Art thou that traitor angel? Art thou he who first broke peace in heaven and faith, till then unbroken, and in proud rebellious arms drew after him a third part of heaven's sons, and are here condemned to waste eternal days in woe and pain? Back to thy punishment, false fugitive, lest with a whip of scorpions I pursue thy lingering, and seize thee, and pains unfelt before.
Father! What intends thy hand against thy only son? What fury, O son, possesses thee to bend against thy father's head?
So strange thy words, how Christ, so strange. One callest me father, that phantasm callest my son. I know thee not, nor saw sight more detestable than him in thee.
Hast thou forgotten me then? And do I see now in thine eyes so foul, once deemed so fair in heaven? A goddess, out of thy head I sprung, and you called me sin. Familiar grown, I pleased thyself in me, thy perfect image. Seeing becamest enamored, and such joy thou tookst with me in secret, that my womb conceived a growing burden. Meanwhile, war arose, and fields were fought in heaven, wherein remained, for what could else to our almighty foe, victory. To our part, loss, and down they fell, driven headlong from the pitch of heaven down into this deep. And in the general fall, I also, at which time into my hand this powerful key was given, with charge to keep these gates forever shut, which none can pass without my opening. Pensive here I sat alone. Not long I sat until my womb, pregnant by thee, felt rueful throes. At last this odious offspring whom thou seest, thine own begotten, breaking violent way, tore through my entrails with fear, and thus my nether shape grew transformed. But he, my inbred enemy, forth issued, made to destroy me. I fled, I cried out death, I fled, though he pursued more it seemed, inflamed with lust and rage, and overtook his mother all dismayed, and in embraces forcible and foul rape begot. Before mine eye, in opposition sits grim death, my son and foe, me his parent, and thou our father.
Dear God, since thou claimest me for thy sire, fair son, know I come, no enemy, to set free from out this dark and dismal house of pain both him and thee, and all the heavenly host of spirits. I go to search a place foretold, a place created vast and round, a place of bliss. Therein, place a race of upstart creatures to reside. I haste to know of them, and, once known, shall soon bring thee to that place where thou and death shall dwell at ease. There you shall be fed and filled in measure. All things shall be your prey.
The key of this infernal pit I keep, forbidden to unlock these adamantine gates. But what owe I to his commands above who hates me, and hath hither thrust me down into this gloom? Thou art my father, thou my author, thou my being scapes me. Whom shall I obey but thee? Whom follow? Thou wilt bring me soon to that new world of light and bliss, where I shall reign at thy right hand, voluptuous, thy daughter and thy darling.
Without end.
Only begotten Son, seest thou what rage transports our adversary? So bent he seems on desperate revenge. And now he wings his way direct toward the new created world, with purpose to destroy.
Or worse, by some false guile pervert.
And shall pervert, for man will hearken to his lies, and so will fall.
Whose fault?
Whose but his own? He had all of me he could have. I made him just and right, sufficient to have stood, though free to fall. And free he must remain till he enthralls himself. Else must I change the nature of man, and revoke the high decree which ordained his freedom. He himself ordained his fall.
Man falls deceived.
Man, therefore, shall find grace in mercy and justice both. So shall my glory excel in heaven and on earth.
O Father, gracious art thou that man should find grace. Both heaven and earth shall high extol thy praises with the innumerable sounds of hymns and sacred songs. Should man be lost? Should man, late so loved, fall thus by fraud with his own folly? Shall the adversary obtain his will and frustrate thine? Shall he fulfill his malice and draw to hell after him the whole race of mankind? Or wilt thou thyself abolish thy creation and unmake what for thy glory thou hast made?
O Son, Son of my bosom, Son, who art my word, my wisdom and effectual might, all hast thou spoken as my thoughts are, all as my eternal purpose hath decreed. Man shall not quite so be lost, yet saved, who will, but not of will in him, grace in me, freely given. Once more I will renew. Yet fallen, once more he shall stand by me upheld, that he may know how frail his fallen condition is, and owe his deliverance to me, to none but me. So is my will, prayer, repentance, and obedience endeavored with sincere intent. Mine ear shall not be slow to hear, mine eye not shut to see. Yet they who neglect and scorn shall never taste, but hard be hardened, and blind be blinded more, that they may stumble on and deeper fall.
Yet all is not done. Man, disobeying, disloyal, breaks his fealty and sins against the high supremacy of heaven.
Die he, or justice must, unless for him some other willing and able, pay the rigid satisfaction, death for death. Say, heavenly powers, shall we find such love? Which of ye will become mortal to redeem man's mortal crime?
Father, thy word is passed. Man shall find grace, and shall grace not find her way, which finds her means? I offer on me, let thine anger fall. Account me man. I for his sake shall leave thy bosom and this glory next to thee, and for him lastly die. Well pleased on me, let death wreak all his rage. Under his gloomy power I shall not long lie vanquished. By thee I live, though now to death I yield. But I shall rise victorious. I through the ample air in triumph high shall lead. Then with the multitude of my redeemed shall enter heaven long absent, and return, Father, to see thy face.
Wherein no cloud of anger shall remain, but peace assured.
And reconciled, wrath shall be no more thenceforth, but in thy presence joy entire.
O thou in heaven and earth, the only peace found out for mankind under wrath. O thou my Son, made flesh, be thou the head of all mankind, and be judged and die, and dying rise, and rising raise brethren, ransomed with your own dear life. So heavenly love shall outdo hellish hate.
Omnipotent, immutable, immortal, infinite, eternal King, the author of all being, fountain of light,
Begotten Son, divine similitude,
God shall be all in all,
and all adore him, adore the Son,
and honor him as me.
Heaven rang with jubilee, and loud hosannas filled the ethereal region, as they in their happy hour in joy and hymning sped. Meanwhile, on the inroad of darkness, old Satan alighted walked, his traveled step far distant, ascending up to the walls of heaven, a structure high, atop whereof the stairs were such as whereon Jacob also saw angels ascending and descending, bands of guardians bright.
These are the gates of heaven.
The stairs were let down, whether to dare the fiend by easy ascent, or aggravate his sad exclusion from the doors of bliss. Satan from this, on the bottommost stair, looked down with wonder at the sudden view of all this world at once. Such wonder seized, but more envy at the sight of all this world beheld so fair. Round he surveys from where he stood. Oh, beyond the horizon, then from pole to pole he views in breadth. Above them all, a golden sun in splendor as like as to heaven allured his eye. Within, a glorious angel, the same which John also saw within the sun. His back was turned, but not his brightness hid. He seemed fixed in cogitation deep. Glad was the fiend to find one which might direct his wandering flight to Eden. But first he cast to change his proper shape, which else might work him danger, and now a stripling cherub appears ere he drew nigh.
Gabriel, thou of those spirits that stand in sight of God's high throne, gloriously bright.
I am.
Desire to see and know all these his wondrous works, and chiefly man, hath brought me from the choirs of cherubim, that I may find man, and with open admiration him behold, that both in him and all things the universal maker I might praise.
fair angel, thy desire to know the works of God, and thereby to glorify the great workmaster merits praise. For wonderful indeed are all his works.
Brightest seraph, tell them, in which of all these shining orbs hath man his fixed seat?
Look downward on that globe, whose hither side with light from hence shines. That place is earth, the seat of man. That light his day. That spot to which I point is paradise, Adam's abode.
My way I canst not miss.
Me mine requires.
Therefore, Satan took his leave, and towards the coast of earth sped with hope's success, till on the Pleiades top he lights. Doubts and horror distract his troubled thoughts. Conscience wakes despair, wakes bitter memory of what he was, what is to come. Sometimes towards Eden his grieved look he fixes sad, sometimes towards heaven and the full blazing sun.
Son, I hate thy beams that bring to my remembrance from what state I fell, warring in heaven against heaven's matchless king. Wherefore, he deserved no such return from me. Could be less, and to afford him praise and pay him thanks, how due. All his good proved ill in me and wrought but malice. Lifted up so high, thought one step higher would set me highest. Be miserable! Which way shall I fly? Infinite wrath or infinite despair? Which way I fly is hell. Myself am hell. Is there no place left for repentance? None for pardon left? Say I could repent. Could obtain by act of grace my former state. Soon would Hythe recall high thoughts. How soon to a worse relapse and heavier fall. Short intermission. So, farewell, hope. With hope, farewell fear, farewell remorse, all good to me. It's lost.
Each passion dimmed his face and betrayed him. For heavenly minds from such distempers foul are ever clear. Gabriel, whose eye pursued him down the way he went, saw him disfigured, much more than could befall a spirit of happy sort. And he marked and observed, as Satan supposed all unobserved and unseen. Thence up he flew, and on the tree of life sat devising death to those who lived. Beneath him now with new wonder, he views a heaven on earth, blissful paradise, Eden.
Out of the fertile ground, we cause to grow all trees of noblest kind, for sight, smell, taste. All amidst them stood the tree of life, and next to life, the tree of knowledge.
From this Assyrian garden, where the fiend saw and delighted all delight, all sorts of living creatures, new to sight and strange, came to of far nobler shape, godlike erect, with native honor clad in naked majesty, and lords of all, and worthy, for in their looks the image of their glorious Maker shone. Though both not equal as their sex, not equal seemed. Contemplation he and valor formed. softness she, and sweet, attractive grace. He for God only, she for God in him. So hand in hand they passed, the loveliest pair that ever since in love's embraces met. Adam, the goodliest man of men, and his fairest Eve.
Ah, ye gentle pair, how little ye think that nigh your change approaches, when all these delights shall vanish and deliver ye to woe. Being with you I see a mutual amity so straight, so close that I with you must dwell, or you with me henceforth. My dwelling haply may not please like this fair paradise, yet such accept your Maker's work. He gave it me, which I as freely give. Hell shall unfold to entertain you two, and there will be room to receive your numerous offspring. Thank him who puts me to this revenge.
Down he alights, nearer to view his prey. Unespied to mark what of their state he more might learn.
Soul partner, soul part of all these joys, dearer thyself than all. The power that made us and this ample world be infinitely good. It requires from us no other task than to keep this Eden, this easy charge, and of all the trees in paradise that bear delicious fruit, not to taste that only tree of knowledge, not to near the tree of life. So near grows death to life. And what death is, some dreadful thing, no doubt. For well thou knowest, God hath pronounced it death to taste of that tree. The only sign of our obedience, among so many signs of rule and power conferred upon us. Let us not think hard one easy prohibition, but let us ever praise him and extol his bounty, following our delightful task to prune these growing plants, and to tend these flowers, which with thee are sweet.
O thou flesh of my flesh, my guiding head, what thou hast said is just and right. For we to him indeed all praises owe, and daily thanks. That day I oft remember, when from sleep I first awaked, and found myself on a bed of flowers, wondering where and what I was, whence thither brought, and how. Not distant far, a murmuring sound of waters issued from a cave. I thither went with unexperienced thought, and laid me down on the green bank, to look into the clear, smooth lake that to me seemed another sky. And as I bent down to look, a shape within the water gleam appeared, bending to look on me. I started back. It started back. But pleased I soon returned. Pleased it returned just as soon, with answering looks of sympathy and love. There I had fixed mine eyes till a voice thus warned me. What thou seest, what there thou seest, fair creatures, thyself. With thee it comes and goes, but follow me, and I will bring thee he whose image thou art. He thou shalt enjoy inseparably thine. What could I do but follow straight, invisibly thus led, till I espied thee, fair indeed and tall, my heart henceforth, my dear.
Sight hateful, sight tormenting us, these two in paradise in one another's arms, bliss on bliss, while I to hell thrust. Let me not forget what I have gained from their own mouths. It's not theirs, it seems. On fatal tree there stands of knowledge called, forbidden them to taste. Knowledge forbidden. Can it be sin to know? Can it be death? Do they only stand by ignorance? Is that their happy state, the proof of their obedience and faith? Fair foundation laid whereupon to build their ruin. Hence will I excite their minds to know, to be like gods, aspiring to be such they taste and die. Do what you may, ye happy pair. Enjoy short pleasures. The longer woes are to succeed.
So saying, his proud step he scornful turned, and began through wood, through waste, or hill, or dale his road. Meanwhile, the setting sun slowly descended, and between rocky pillars Michael sat, chief of the angelic guard, waiting night. Thither came Gabriel, gliding through the evening on a sunbeam, swift as a shooting star, and thus began in haste.
Michael, to thee hath given charge and strict watch, that to this happy place no evil thing approach enter in. This day at height of noon, there came to my sphere a spirit, jealous as he seemed, to know more the Almighty's work, and chiefly man, God's latest image. I described his way and marked his eerie gate, but in the mount that lies from Eden north, where he first lighted, I soon discerned his looks, alien from heaven, with passion foul obscured. Mine eyes pursued him still, but under shade lost sight of him. One of the banished crew, I fear, hath ventured from the deep to raise new troubles. Him thy care must be to find.
If spirit of other sort should overleap these earthly bounds, in whatsoever shape he may lurk, by morrow dawning I will know.
Now came still evening on, and twilight grey silence accompanied, and twilight was pleased.
Fair consort, the hour of night, when all things retire to rest, mind us of like repose, since God hath said labor and rest was day and night successive to men. Tomorrow, ere fresh morning streak the east with first approach of light, we must be risen, not our pleasant labor. Meanwhile, as nature wills, night bids us rest.
My author and disposer, what thou bidst unargued I obey, so God ordains. For God is thy law, thou mine, to know no more as woman's happiest knowledge and her praise. With thee I forget all time, all seasons, all plays alike.
Hand in hand alone they passed onto their blissful bower, and under open sky adored the God who made both sky, air, earth, and heaven.
Maker omnipotent, work employed hath finished happy, both in our mutual help and our mutual love. Thy goodness infinite, both when we wake and when we seek as now, thy gift of sleep.
Into their inmost bower, hand in hand they went, and nor turned Adam from his fair spouse, nor Eve the rites mysterious of connubial love refused. Hail, wedded love, mysterious love.
Now had night measured with her shadow, and forth issuing at the accustomed hour, came armed Michael to his night watch.
Gabriel, with wing speed we search through this garden. Leave unsearched no nook, but chiefly where those two fair creatures lodge, some infernal spirits seen.
Escape the bars of hell on errand bad, no doubt.
Such where ye find, seize fast.
On they to the bower, direct in search of whom they sought. Him there they found, close at the ear of Eve, squat like a toad, assaying by his devilish art to forge illusions, phantasms, and dreams, inspiring vain hopes, vain aims, and inordinate desires blown up with high conceits, and gendering pride. Him thus intent, Gabriel with his spear touched.
Up he starts, discovered and surprised. Up in his own shape the fiend, and backstep those fair angels, so sudden to behold the grisly king.
Which of those rebel spirits comest thou, and why sattest thou like an enemy in wait at the head of these that sleep?
Know ye not me? You knew me once. There, sitting where ye durst not soar. Not to know me argues yourself the lowest of your throng.
Think not, revolted spirit, thy shape the same as whence thou stood in heaven, upright and pure, that glory departed from thee, and thou resemblest now thy sin, obscure and foul.
Why hast thou, Satan, broke the bounds prescribed to thy transgressions, and employed, it seems, to violate sleep?
Michael, thou hadst in heaven the esteem of wise, and such I held thee. But this question asked puts me into doubt. Lives there any who loves his pain, who would not, finding way, break loose from hell though thither doomed? Thou wouldst thyself, no doubt, and venture to whatever place furthest from pain, where thou mightest hope to change torment with ease, which in this place I sought. You found me here where I am, but that implies no violence or harm.
Wherefore thou alone? Wherefore with thee came not all hell broke loose? Is pain to them less pain, and thou then less hardy than they to endure? Courageous chief, the first in flight from pain!
Insulting angel, well thou knowest I stood thy fiercest in battle and shrank not from pain. But thy words argue thy inexperience. What behooves a faithful leader not to hazard all ways of danger by himself? I alone undertook to wing the desolate abyss, here and to find this place where my powers I might set.
Thou sly hypocrite, who now would seem patron of liberty, mark when I read thee now, Lamont! Fly thither from whence thou fledst, ere back to the infernal pit I drag thee chained and seal thee so.
Only when I am my captive may ye talk of chains, and then expect to feel my prevailing arm.
In this commotion, all the elements had gone to rack, disturbed and torn with the violence of conflict. The eternal that prevents such horrid fray hung forth in heaven his golden scale. The ladder quick upflew.
I know thy strength, and thou knowest mine. What folly then to boast what arms can do, since neither thine nor mine heaven permits. For proof, look up!
Satan, be thy thoughts and down celestial sign, where thou hast great shown how light, how wicked thou resist.
The fiend looked up and knew his mounted scale aloft. No more, but fled murmuring, and with him fled the shades of night.
How sleeps she?
At peace, though not.
Be damned villainous fallen star to thus bring ill ease!
Once deemed so fair, so sanctified, so in power beneath the almighty power, our dear companion at once. Rememberst thee of he, in gloried progeny of light, here the first, if not the first archangel, great in power, favor, and preeminence, Lucifer.
Satan, so call him now. His former name is heard no more in heaven. So fraught with envy against the Son of God he is.
He could not bear through pride the sight of the sun, and thought himself impaired. Rememberst thee?
Deep malice I remember. Thence conceiving and disdaining soon as midnight brought on the desky hour, where he resolved with his legions to dislodge and leave, unworshipped, unobeyed the throne supreme. Contemptuous!
I remember.
In those days before the days, The clouds had darkened all the hills with rebellious spirits. Smoke rolled in dusky wreaths. Reluctant flames the sign of wrath await. Nor with less dread the loud ethereal trumpet from on high, at which command those powers which stood for heaven marched on in silence their bright legions to the sound of instrumental harmonies, which breathed heroic ardor for the cause of God and his Messiah. On they moved, indissolubly firm. Across great tracts of heaven they marched, with upright beams innumerable, rigid spears, helmets thronged, shields, abandoned powers of Satan hasting on to meet.
Thrones, dominations, princedoms, powers, no more need ye submit your necks and choose to bend the supplely. Before us, our puissance is our own right hand shall teach us highest deeds by proof to try. Who is our equal? Equal all and free, equally free to cast off his yoke.
All warriors, up for fight! The foe at hand! This day so thick a cloud he comes, and settled on his face I see resolution! Let each his adamantine coat gird well, each fit battle his helm, grip fast his old shield, and the faithful armies ring! Hosanna to the highest!
So strange to us that angel should with angel war, and in fierce hostings meet, who want to meet so oft in festivals of joy and love, unanimous as sons of one great sire, hymning the eternal Father.
But the shout of battle now began, and rushing sound of onset, ended soon each milder thought. High in the midst, exalted as a god, the apostate lighted twixt host and host. A dreadful interval. Ere on the rough edge of battle where it joined, Satan with vast and haughty stride advanced, armed in adamant and gold. Michael that sight endured not, where he stood among the mightiest. Forth stepping opposite, halfway he met his daring foe, incensed, and thus securely him defied.
Proud art thou? Thy hope was to have reached the height of thy aspiring unopposed. The throne of God left unguarded in terror at thy power of potent tongue. Fool! Now to think how vain against the omnipotent to rise in arms, who up to the smallest thing could raise incessant armies to defeat thy folly. Or with single hand, with one blow, unaided, could have finished thee and overwhelmed thy legions under darkness.
Well, thou comest before thy fellows, ambitious to win from me some plume. At first, I thought that liberty and heaven to heavenly souls had been all one, but now see most through sloth had rather serve. Ministering spirits trained up in feast and song, such as thou art, thou minstrelsy of heaven.
Apostate! Still thou errest! Nor end wilt find of erring! This is servitude! Thyself not free, but to thyself enthralled! Reign thou in hell, thy kingdom! Let me serve in heaven God, ever blessed, and his divine behests obeyed, worthiest to be obeyed!
They ended parley, and both addressed the fight unspeakable. Stood they motionless and statue, arms fit to decide the empire of great heaven. Expectations stood before. Speedily the angelic throng retired and left large hill within unsafe to set forth. Two planets, aspect malign, of fiercest opposition in mid-sky, that might determine all with one stroke.
Author of evil unnamed in heaven, thou seest these acts of hateful strife heaviest on thyself and soon thy adherents. Think not to trouble holy rest,
confines, and evil go with thee to hell, the place of evil. Thou and thy wicked crew, ere some more sudden vengeance wing from heaven, precipitate thee with augmented pain. Thinkest thou with wings of very threats to chase me hence? We mean to win, or else to turn this heaven itself into the hell thou fabulous, here to dwell free, if not to reign.
Through the vast of heaven, fierce of battle sounded, and with storming fury rose. Arms on armor crashing, great horrible discord. The maddening wheels of brazen chariots raged. Dire was the noise of conflict. And overhead, the dismal hiss of fiery darts and flaming volleys flew. So under fiery coat rushed together both battles main with inextinguishable rage. All heaven resounded.
2 days as we compute the days of heaven. 2 days Michael and his powers went forth to tame these disobedience in vain war, vain fight. From perpetual fight we needs must last, endless, incapable of mortal injury, imperishable.
2 days to themselves I left them, and to disordered rage let loose the reins. Makes wild work in heaven. 2 days passed, so that all may know in heaven and in hell.
And the third is mine.
Forth rushed with whirlwind sound the chariot of paternal deity, flashing thick flames. Before him, power divine his way prepared, and at his command, heaven renewed. And now into terror changed his countenance, too severe to be beheld. In his right hand grasped he 10,000 thunders, which he sent before him, such as in their souls in fixed blaze. His eyes glared lightning and shot forth pernicious fire. Among the accursed, all resistance was lost, all courage. Down their idle weapons dropped. Exhausted, spiritless, afflicted, fallen. The overthrown he raised, and as a herd drove them before him, with terrors and with furies, into the wasteful deep.
Thus I remember the deep fall of he to highest spire. Rebel Satan, he who is at thy ear, dearest creation, no doubt that with him, bereaved of happiness, thou mayst partake his punishment, eternal misery. But listen not to his temptation. Firmly stand with thy husband, and do not fall. Remember, and fear to transgress.
Stand we armed on strictest watch, Gabriel. Steadfast till morn.
And Almighty, preserve them.
Now morn, her rosy steps in the eastern clime advancing, sowed the earth with orient pearl. When Adam waked, with only the sound of leaves and the shrill song of birds on every bough. His wonder was to find unawakened Eve, with tresses discomposed, and glowing cheek, as though unquiet rest.
Awake, my fairest, my espoused, heaven's last best gift, my ever new delight awake. The morning shines and the fresh field calls us.
O soul, glad I see thy face, and morn returned. This night I've dreamed of offense and trouble, which my mind knew never till this irksome night. Methought close at mine ear one called me forth to walk. With gentle voice I thought it thine. It said, Why sleepest thou, Eve? Now is the pleasant time, the cool, the silent, now reigns the moon. With more pleasing light I rose as at thy call, but found thee not. To find thee I directed then my walk, which brought me on a sudden to the tree of intricate knowledge. Fair it seemed, much fairer to my fancy than by day. And as I wondering looked, beside it stood one shaped and winged of heaven. And on that tree he also gazed. And no fair plant, said he, is knowledge so despised. What reserve forbids to taste, forbid to me who will no longer thy offered good. Why else set here? He plucked, he taste, me damp horror chilled, as such bold words vouch with a deed so bold. But he thus overjoyed cried out, O fruit divine, forbidden here it seems, yet able to make gods of men. Here, happy creature, fair angelic Eve, partake thou also. Happy though thou art, happier thou mayst be henceforth among the gods, thyself a goddess. So saying, he drew nigh, and to me held to my mouth that same fruit which he had plucked. When suddenly my guide was gone, and I sunk down and fell asleep. But oh, how glad I waked to find this but a dream.
Dear half, my thoughts in sleep affect me equally, nor can I unlike this uncouth dream of evil. Know that in the mind are many faculties that serve, and among them fancy. When reason retires, oft mimic fancy wakes to imitate her with wild works, ill-matching words or deeds long past or late. Some resemblances of our last evening's talk methinks I find in thy dream, but with fancy's addition strange. Yet be not sad. Evil into the mind of man may come and go, leave no spot or blame behind, which gives me hope that what in sleep thou didst, waking thou never wilt consent to do.
But silently a gentle tear let fall from either eye, and two other precious drops ready stood. And ere they fell, he kissed the gracious signs of sweet remorse and pious awe.
Be not disheartened, nor cloud those looks that want to be more cheerful and serene. And let us to our fresh employments rise, among the groves, the fountains, and the flowers.
So cheered he his fair spouse, and she was cheered.
And so all was clear, and to the field they haste, and began their orisons, each morning to praise their Maker. Sweetness sung, and they thus began.
These are thy glorious works, Parent of good, Almighty. Myself how wondrous, unspeakable, who sittst above the thrones, to us invisible, or dimly seen in these thy lowest works. Yet these declare thy glory and goodness beyond thought, and power divine. Join all ye creatures to extol him first, him last, him midst, and without end.
Fairest of stars, last in the train of night, praise him in thy sphere while day arises, the sweetest hour of prime.
Thou Sun, acknowledge him thy greater, sound his praise in thy eternal course.
Moon, that now meets the orient sun, with thick stars and other wandering fires that move in mystic dance, resound his praise, who out of darkness called up light.
Air, elements, every plant, and sign of worship, wave.
Ye birds that sing up to heaven's gate,
Ye waters, ye that walk the earth.
to hill, valley, fountain, or shade.
Hail, universal Lord, first and last, beginning and end. Holy, holy, holy.
So prayed they innocent, and to their thoughts firm peace recovered soon and wonted calm. And on to their morning's rural work they haste among sweet dews and flowers.
Son, thou seest what stir on earth?
How disturbed this night the human camp. How Satan even now whispers in them the ruin of all mankind.
Go we therefore this day, as father with son, to converse with Adam. In what shade or bower we find him from the heat of noon retired.
Now the mounted sun shot down direct his furted rays to warm the earth's inmost womb. And Eve within do at her hour prepared for dinner savory fruits, of taste to please true appetite and not disrelish thirst, of nectarous draughts between from milky stream, barren and grape.
Come, we to them.
Adam.
Lord!
Oh, innocent discerning of paradise. And Eve, hail mother of mankind.
Father, none can earth such glorious shade contain, since by descending from the thrones above to honor us and the spacious ground, in yonder shady bower rest, and what the garden choicest bears sit and taste.
Lead on then where thy bower.
Go with speed, Eve, and what thy stores contain bring forth in poor abundance, fit to honor and receive our almighty guest.
I will.
Please to taste these bounties, which you, our nourisher, from whom all perfect good descends, cause the earth to yield. Unsavory food, perhaps, for spiritual natures?
But what is given to man in food, those faculties require within to taste. Tasting, concoct, digest, assimilate, and from corporal to incorporeal turn. For know that whatever is created needs to be sustained and fed. Of the elements, those grosser feed the purer. Earth and sea feeds the air those fires ethereal. Nor doth the moon no nourishment excel, even sup she with the ocean, though not I. Yet Eve hath so varied her bounty, as may compare to heaven, that to taste, think not we shall be fastidious.
Only this I know, that one celestial Father gives to all. This honor done to man, to taste food not of need, yet accepted. Yet what compares a heaven's high feast?
O Adam, almighty are we, from which all things proceed, and created we all such to perfection of various forms and various degrees. Of substance, man's nourishment. Wonder not what spirits breathe. Time may come when man with angels may participate, and from these corporal nutriments, perhaps, your bodies may at last turn all to spirit, and winged ascend ethereal to we, if ye be found obedient, and keep unalterably our love entire.
O favorable, propitious provider, well hast thou taught the way that might direct our knowledge. In contemplation of steps, we may ascend to God. But say, what meant that caution, if ye be found obedient? Can we want, then, obedience to you? Or possibly your love desert?
Adam, that thou art happy, owe to we, but that thou continues as such, owe to thyself, that is, to thy obedience. Therein stand. This was that caution given thee, be advised.
We made thee perfect, not immutable.
And good we made thee. But to persevere we left it in thy power, ordained thy will by nature free. For how can hearts not free be tried whether they serve willing or not? Who will but what they must by destiny, and cannot other choose?
To love or not, in this ye stand or fall.
My words attentive, divine instructor, I have heard. I knew not to be both will and deed created free. Yet that we should never forget to love our Maker, and obey him whose command single is yet so just. My constant thoughts assured me, and still assure. Since thou hast gently imparted things above earthly thought, deign to descend now lower, and relate how first began this heaven which we behold distant so high, and this florid earth. What cause moved the Creator to build in nothing?
Ah, what words or tongue of man can even suffice?
What heart of man suffice to comprehend? Yet what thou canst attain, which best may serve to infer thee happier, shall not be withheld thy hearing.
Know then, the omnipotent eternal Father from his throne beheld all in nothing, and to his Son thus spake. Let our overshadowing spirit ride forth and bid the deep within be heaven and earth. Thus the heavens created, thus the earth unformed and void, darkness profound. But on the watery calm our spirit outspread.
Let there be light, said we.
And forthwith light ethereal, first of all things, quintessence pure, sprung from the deep.
Light was good. Next, divided light from darkness, light the day, dark night.
Thus was the first day, evening and morn, sung by the celestial choirs.
Now, let there be firmament amidst the waters. Let it divide the waters from the waters, so firmament made. Heavens he made the firmament. Evening and morning chorus sung the second day.
He gathered now ye waters under heaven into one place, and let dry land appear. Immediately it was done. The dry land, earth, and the congregated waters we called seas, and we saw that it was good.
Let the earth put forth verdant grass, herb yielding seed, tree yielding seed after her kind, whose seed is in the earth.
And we saw that it was good. Thus evening and morn recorded the third day. And then we said, let there be lights high in the expanse of heaven to divide the night from the day. And let them be for signs, for seasons, for days encircling years. And it was so. And we said, let there be two great lights, the sun and the moon. And every magnitude of stars. And we sowed with stars the heavens, thick as a field.
Let the waters generate living souls, and fowl fly above the earth. Thus the water with fishes live.
By fish, by fowl, and beast. But of the sixth day yet remained the masterwork, the end of all yet done.
The creature is the sanctity of reason.
Self-knowing, thither with heart and eyes and voice, directed in devotion to adore and worship God supreme, who made him chief of all his works.
Thus, the eternal omnipotent Father to his Son spake.
Let us go, therefore, and make man in our image, man in our similitude. And let him rule over the earth, and fish, and fowl, and beast of the field.
Therefore, we formed thee, Adam, thee, O man, dust of the ground, and in thy nostrils breathed the breath of life. In his image he created thee, in the image of God. and thou becamest a living soul. Male we made thee, but thy consort female for rest. Then blessed mankind, and said, Be fruitful, and multiply, and fill the earth, subdue it, and over all hold dominion over the fish of the sea, and the fowl of the air, and every living thing that moves upon the earth. Now the seventh evening arose in Eden, for the sun was set, and from the east twilight came on. At heaven's holy mountain, high atop the imperial throne, sank we down, the work ordained. Author and end of all things, and now resting from work, blessed and hallowed the seventh day.
Thus was the Sabbath kept. And thy request think now fulfilled, Adam, that asked how first this face of things began, and what was done before thy memory from the beginning.
What thanks sufficient, or what recompense equal have I to render thee, divine historian, who thus largely hast allayed the thirst I had of knowledge, and related things else by me unsearchable? Something of doubt yet remains, which only thy solution can resolve. When I behold this goodly frame, this earth with the firmament, and all her numbered stars, I oft admire so many other noble bodies, created greater so to this one.
To ask or seek, we blame thee not. For the heaven is as of the book of God before thee set, wherein to read of our wonders, secrets to admire.
Adam, joy thou rather in what we give to thee, this paradise and thy fair Eve. Heaven is for thee too high to know what passes there. Be lowly wise. Think only what concerns thee and thy being. Dream not of other worlds, and what creatures may live there, and what state, condition, or degree. Be contented that what has been revealed to you thus far has been not only of earth only, but of highest heaven.
Fully hast thou satisfied me, free from intricacies, perplexing thoughts that disrupt the sweet of life.
Apt the mind or fancy is to rove unchecked, and of her roving is no end.
Therefore, from this high pitch, let us descend a lower flight, and speak of things at hand.
Day is not yet spent. Till then, relate us fond with wonted words.
Thou seest how subtly to detain thee I devise, Father. For while I sit with thee, I seem as in heaven, and sweeter thy discourse is to mine ear.
Lion with lioness, so fitly them with pair. Fish with fish, bird with bird. Of man's fellowship let us speak.
So lovely fair, sweetness of my heart, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, myself before me. One flesh, one heart, one soul. When I approach her loveliness so absolute, she seems in herself complete. So well to know her own that what she wills to do or say seems wisest, discreetest, virtuous, best. All higher knowledge in her presence falls degraded. And wisdom in discourse with her loses, discountenanced, and like folly shoes.
Fair, no doubt.
Worthy thy honor, thy cherishing, thy love, not thy subjection.
Adam, in loving thou dost well, but in passion not, wherein true love consists not. Love refines the thoughts, and heart has her seat in reason and is judicious. This is the scale by which thou mayest attend to heavenly love.
Her outside form so fair, those thousand decencies, those gracious acts that daily flow from all her words and actions, mixed with love and sweet compliance. Yet to these I am not subject. I to thee disclose what I thence inward feel,
not therefore foiled.
To love we blame thee not, for love is both the way and the guide.
Bear with me then, if lawful, what I ask. Love not the heavenly spirits? And how express they their love? By looks only? Or do they mix a radiance, virtual or immediate touch?
Let it suffice thee that thou knowest them happy, and without love no happiness. But I can no more. The parting sun sets, my signal to depart.
Adam, be strong, live happy in love, and keep our great command.
Take heed lest thy passion sway thy judgment, and I in thy persevering shall rejoice.
Stand fast. To stand or fall, free in thine own arbitrament it lies.
Go, Heavenly One, ethereal might, sovereign goodness whom I adore. Thy condescension has been gentle to me, and shall be remembered ever with grateful memory.
O more of talk, where God with man sit indulgent, and with him partake rural repast. But I now must change those notes to tragic, to foul distrust and breach disloyal on the part of man. Revolt.
The sun was sunk, and after him the stars whose office is to bring twilight upon the land. Night's hemisphere veiled the horizon, when Satan, who late fled before Gabriel's threats out of paradise, now improved with meditated malice, fearless returns.
By night he fled, and at midnight returned from compassing the earth. Cautious of day, since Gabriel, regent of the sun, described his entrance, and forewarned the cherubim who kept their watch. Thus, Eden he roamed, and with inspection deep, considered every creature which might serve his wiles, and found he the serpent, fit vessel, fittest imp of fraud in whom to enter. Thus he resolved, but first his bursting passion into plants thus poured.
Earth, how like to heaven. The more I see pleasures about me, so much more I feel the torment within. In destroying do I find ease to my relentless thoughts. Thus, to me shall be the glory in one day to have marred what he Almighty styled in 6 nights and days. Thus, wrapped in a mist of midnight vapor, glide I obscure to find the serpent in whose mazy folds to hide me. Foul descent, that I who was contended with gods am now constrained into a beast. Will not ambition and revenge descend too?
So saying, like a black mist creeping, he held to his midnight search, where soonest he find the serpent, in at his mouth the devil entered, and possessing soon inspired intelligence, waiting close the approach of morn.
Then, when a sacred light began to dawn in Eden, forth came human pair, and commune how that day they best may ply their work.
Adam, well may we labor this garden, still to tend herb, plant, and flower, a pleasant task enjoyed, but till more hands aid us, the work under our labor grows. Now therefore adviser here, let us divide our labors. Thou where choice leads thee, or where most needs, will lie in yonder spring of flowers till noon.
So leave. Well hast thou motioned, well thy thoughts employed, how we might best fulfill the work which here God hath assigned us. To short absence I could yield, for solitude sometimes is best, and short retirement urges sweet return. But doubt possesses me for the dream of hence.
That thou shouldst doubt my firmness to God or thee I expected not to hear. Dreams fraud is thy fear, Thy equal fear, then, that my firm faith and love can by dreams fraud be shaken or seduced.
Tender love enjoins that I should mind thee oft, and mind thou me. From we subsist, yet possible to swerve, not keeping strictest watch, since reason may fall into deception unaware. But if trial unsought thou things may find, and thus warned, go.
With thy permission, then, and thus forewarned I go.
And thus, like a wood nymph, light betook her to the groves, and as I pursued her, delighted, but desiring more her stay.
O much deceived, much failing daughter Eve, of thy presumed return event perverse. For ambush hid among the sweet flowers and shades, and with hellish rancor waited to intercept thy ways, and return thee despoiled of innocence, of faith, of bliss. For since first break of dawn, the fiend's serpent in appearance forth was come, and on his quest were likeliest to find his purposed prey, when to his wish beyond his hope, Eve separate he spies, veiled in a cloud of fragrance where she sat. Such pleasure took the serpent to behold the sweet recess of Eve, thus early, thus alone, her heavenly form angelic, her graceful innocence, her every air of gesture or least action overawed his malice. And for that space, the evil one stood abstracted of his own evil, and for a time remained disarmed of guile, of hate, of envy, of revenge. But the hot hell that always in him burns soon ended his delight, and tortures him now more the more he sees of pleasure not for him ordained. Then soon fierce hate he recollects, and all his thoughts of mischief return.
Thoughts? Whither have you led me? With what sweet compulsion thus transported to forget what hither hath brought us? Hate, not love, nor hope for paradise, for hell, nor hope to taste of pleasure. All pleasure to destroy. May not let pass occasion. Behold, alone the woman, opportune to all attempts, the way to which her ruin now I take.
Thus spake the enemy of mankind, enclosed in serpent, and toward Eve addressed his way.
Wonder not, sovereign mistress, who art so wonder why I do approach thee thus. Fairest resemblance of thy maker fair, thy celestial beauty I adore, a goddess among gods.
What may this mean? Language of man pronounced by tongue of brute? I thought this denied to beast. Thee serpent I knew, but not with human voice endued. Say, how camest thou speakable?
Easy it is for me to tell thee all that thou commandest. I was as other beasts that graze of abject thoughts and low, till on a day roving the field I chanced a goodly tree, loaden with fruits of fairest colour. I near drew to gaze, when from the boughs a savoury odour blown, a smell the sweetest to satisfy the sharp desire I had. I resolved not to defer. About the mossy trunk I wound me to pluck and eat my fill. such pleasure never till that hour had I found. Ere long I perceive strange alteration in me, of reason, powers, and speech. Thenceforth to speculation high or deep I turned my thoughts, and considered all things in heaven and earth, all things fair and good, and all that fair and good in thy divine semblance, and in thy beauty, no fairer to thine equivalent. So come I to gaze and to worship thee, sovereign mistress, universal dame.
Serpent, thy overpraising leaves in doubt the virtue of that fruit, in thee first proved. But say, where grows this tree? From hence how far?
Mistress, the way is ready and not long. If thou desirest, I can bring thee thither soon.
Lead then.
He, leading swiftly, made straight to mischief swift, to the tree of prohibition, root of all woe.
Serpent, we may have spared our coming here. This tree we may not eat nor touch. God so commanded.
Indeed. And hath God then said that of all these garden fruits ye shall not eat, and yet declare ye, Lord of all in earth and air?
Of each tree amidst the garden we may eat of. But of this fair tree God hath said, ye shall not eat thereof, lest ye die.
Queen of this universe, ye shall not surely die. How should you? By the fruit. The fruit gives you life to knowledge. Look on me who have tasted and both live and live more perfect. Shall that be shut to man, which to the beast is open? Why then was this forbid? Why but to awe? Why but to keep you low and ignorant, his worshippers? He knows in the day you eat thereof, your eyes shall more perfectly be then opened. And ye shall be as gods, knowing both good and evil. Wherein lies the offense? What can your knowledge hurt him? Or is it envy? And can envy dwell in heavenly breasts? All these ye shall know. Reach then, goddess humane, reach and freely taste.
Fixed on the fruit she gazed, which to behold might tempt alone. And in her ears the sound yet rung of his persuasive words, impregned with reason to her seeming, and with truth. So savory that fruit, to touch, to taste.
Tree of knowledge, knowledge both of good and evil, forbidden to taste. What forbids us he but to know? Forbids us good? Forbids us to be wise? In the day we eat of this fair fruit, our doom is we shall die. But how dies the serpent? He hath eaten and lives, and knows, speaks, reasons, discerns, irrational till then. For us alone was death invented? Or to us denied this intellectual food for beasts reserved? No, here grows the cure of all, inviting to the eye, inviting to taste and make wise. What hinders then to reach and feed at once both body and mind?
Forth reaching to the fruit, she plucked, and she ate. Earth trembled. Nature gave signs of woe that all was lost. Back to the thicket slunk the guilty serpent, and well might, for Eve, intent now wholly on her taste, naught else regarded, and greedily she engorged without restraint.
O sovereign, virtuous, precious of all fruits, in paradise do praise, that opens wisdom's way. But to Adam, how shall I appear? Shall I to him make known my change, that he may partake full happiness with me? Or rather not, but keep thee as a knowledge in my power, without co-partner. For inferior, who's free? This may be well, but what if God hath seen and doth ensue? Then I shall be no more, and Adam wedded to another Eve shall live with her and join, I extinct. No, Adam shall share with me, in bliss or woe. So dear I love him, that with him all deaths I could endure. Without him, live no life.
Adam, the while waiting desirous her return, had woven of choice flowers a garland to adorn her tresses. Great joy he promised to his thoughts, and new solace at her return so long delayed. But aught his heart divine of something ill misgave him. He felt the faltering measure, and forth went to meet her. By the tree of knowledge he must pass, and there met her scarce returning from the tree.
Hast thou not wondered, Adam, at my stay? Thee I have missed, agony of love till now not felt, the pain of absence from thy sight. But strange hath been the cause, and wonderful to hear. This tree is not as we are told, not evil, but divine, to open eyes and to make them gods who taste.
And hath been tasted such?
The serpent wise hath eaten of the fruit, and is become not dead as we are threatened, but henceforth endued with human voice and human sense, reasoning to admiration. I have also tasted, and found opener mine eyes, ampler my heart, growing up to Godhead. Therefore also taste, that equal lot may join us, equal joy, equal love.
Horror chill ran through his veins. Speechless he stood and pale.
O fairest of creation, how art thou lost? How of a sudden lost? Defaced, deflowered, and now to death devoted.
O Eve, O fair, divine fair, I with thee have fixed my lot. If death consort with thee, death is to me as life. Bone of my bone thou art, flesh of my flesh. From thy state I shall never be parted, bliss or woe.
Not death, but life. Opened eyes, new hopes, new joys. Taste so divine. On thy experience, Adam, freely taste.
Earth trembled. Nature gave a second groan. Sky lowered muttering thunder. Sad drops wept at completion of the mortal sin original. And now, as with new wine intoxicated both, they swim in mirth and feel advancing. They swim in mirth and feel divinity within them, breeding wings to scorn the earth. Carnal desire inflaming, he for Eve and she for him, and in lust they burn.
Never did thy beauty so inflame my senses, fairer now than ever.
There, they their fill of lust took largely, the solace of their sin, till dewy sleep oppressed them, weary with their amorous play. Soon the force of that fallacious fruit played about their spirits, and grosser sleep bred conscious dreams. Encumbered, up they arose as from unrest, and each the other viewing, soon found their eyes how opened, their minds how darkened. Innocence was gone, confidence, native righteousness and honor. Left to their guilty shame, they both together went into the thickest wood, where they found the fig tree. They gathered, and together with what skill they had, sewed to gird their waist, vain covering if to hide their guilt and dreaded shame.
So unlike that first naked glory.
Their shame in part covered, but not at rest or ease of mind.
But thou hast hearkened to my words and stayed with me as I besought thee. We had then remained still happy, not as now, despoiled of all our good, shamed, naked, miserable.
Why didst not thou, the head, command me absolutely not to go? Thou didst permit, nay approve. Fair dismiss me. Hadst thou been firm and fixed in thy descent, neither had I transgressed nor thou with me.
Ungrateful Eve, thou wert lost, not I who might have lived, enjoyed immortal bliss, but willingly chose rather death with thee. Am I now upbraided as the cause of thy transgressing? I warned thee, I admonished thee.
Thus they in mutual accusation spent the fruitless hours, and of their vain contest there appeared no end.
Meanwhile, the heinous and despiteful act of Satan done in paradise was known in heaven. For what can escape the eye of God all-seeing, or deceive his heart omniscient, who in all things wise and just, hindered not Satan to tempt the mind of man with free will armed.
For still they knew, and ought to have still remembered, the high injunction not to eat the fruit.
Up into paradise in haste the angelic guard ascended, mute and sad for man, for his state, much wondering how the subtle fiend had stolen entrance unseen into paradise. Soon as the unwelcome news from earth arrived at heaven's gate, dim sadness spared not celestial visages. In multitudes the ethereal people ran in haste to hear and know how all befell. They towards the throne supreme accountable made haste to make appear with utmost plea their vigilance, and readily approved when the Most High Eternal Father from on high in secret cloud uttered thus his voice.
Assembled angels, ye powers return. I told ye that man should be seduced out of all and fall, believing lies against his Maker. What rests now but that the mortal sentence pass on his transgression? But whom send I to judge them? Whom but thee, Viceregent Son? To thee I have transferred all power in heaven, on earth, or in hell. Let it be seen that I intend mercy, colleague with justice, and send both man's Redeemer and ransom voluntary to judge man. And so man himself shall judge man fallen.
Father, thine is to decree, mine is to both heaven and earth to do thy will supreme. That thou in me, thy Son beloved, mayest ever rest well pleased. I go to earth to judge these thy transgressors. But thou knowest, whoever judged, the worst on me must lie. For so I undertook before thee, and not repenting, that I may obtain the right to mitigate their doom on me derived. I shall temper so justice with mercy, as illustrate most them fully satisfied, and thee appease.
Now was the sun in western cadence low from noon, and gentle airs do at their hour to fan the earth, now waked and ushered in the evening cool. When he, from Rathmore cool, came the judge and intercessor both to sentence man. The voice of God they heard now walking in the garden, on soft winds brought to their ears they heard. And they hid themselves among the thickest trees, both man and wife.
Adam, where art thou? Wont with joy to meet my coming? What change absence thee? What chance delays? Come forth!
He came, and with him Eve, more loath, though first to offend. Discountenanced both, and discomposed. Love was not in their looks, either to God or to each other, but apparent guilt, shame, hatred, and despair.
I heard thee in the garden, and of thy voice afraid, being naked, hid myself.
Oft thou hast heard my voice and did not fear. How is it now become so dreadful to thee? And that thou art naked, who hath told thee? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I gave thee charge that thou shouldst not eat?
This woman, whom you madest to be my help, and gavest me as thy perfect gift, so fit, so good, so acceptable, so divine, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat.
Was she thy God, that thou didst obey her voice over mine? Or was she made thy superior, that to her thou didst resign thy manhood, and that position wherein God placed thee over her? Lovely she was indeed to attract thy love, not thy subjection. Tell me, woman, what is this thou hast done?
The serpent me beguiled, and I did eat.
Thus to judgment he proceeded, and on the serpent his curse let fall.
Because thou hast done this, cursed art thou above each beast of the field. On thy belly groveling shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. Between thee and the woman I shall put enmity. Between thine and her seed shall bruise thy head, thou shalt bruise his heel.
This oracle verified when Jesus, son of Mary, second Eve, rose from the grave and triumphed, and tread this realm of Satan at last under his feet. And to the woman thus judgment he pronounced.
Thy sorrow I shall greatly multiply by thy conception. Thou shalt bring forth children in sorrow. And to thy husband's will thine shall be subjected. He shall rule over thee.
On Adam last, judgment was pronounced.
Because thou hast hearkened to the voice of thy wife, and eaten of the tree, cursed is the ground for thy sake. Thou in sorrow shalt eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns and thistles also it shall bring thee forth unbid. Thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, until thou return to the ground. For from the ground wast taken. Dust thou art, and shalt to dust return.
So thus he judged man, both judge and intercessor both. And pitying how they stood before him naked, disdained he not the form of servant to assume, as when he washed his servants' feet. And now, as father of his family, he clad their nakedness with skins of beasts. Nor their outward nakedness only, but inward as well, much more with his own righteousness.
Meanwhile, within the gates of hell, sin and death sat, in counterposition within the gates that now stood open wide, belching outrageous flame far into chaos since the fiend had passed through.
Oh, son, methinks I feel new strength within me rise, wings growing, and dominion given me large beyond this deep. Whatever draws me on, sympathy, or some connatural force, powerful at greatest distance to unite with secret amity things of like kind. Thou, my shade inseparable, must with me along, for death from sin no power can separate. But, least the difficulty of passing back, stay his return, perhaps over this gulf, impassable, impervious. Let us try adventurous work, yet to thy power and mine, not unagreeable, to found a path over this main from hell, to that new world where Satan now prevails, a monument of merit high to all the infernal host, easing their passage hence for intercourse or transmigration, as their lot shall be. Nor can I miss the way so strongly drawn by that new-felt attraction and instinct.
Such a scent I draw of carnage, pray innumerable, and taste the savor of death from all things there that live.
Then both from out Hellgates into the waste-wide anarchy of chaos flew they with power. Together they fastened and wrought on over the foaming deep of hell a bridge of length to this now defenseless world forfeit to death. And now in little space this world met hell. Then to earth they returned, to paradise, when behold, Satan, in likeness of an angel bright disguised, he came also. But his children their parents soon discerned. He, after Eve seduced, had slunk into the thicket and changed shape to observe his guileful act. But when he saw descend the Son of God to judge them, he fled, fearing guilty what our wrath might suddenly inflict. And now at the brink of chaos he met his offspring dear. Long he stood admiring the bridge, till sin, his fair enchanting daughter, thus the silence broke.
Oh, parent, what thinkest thou of our empire? Thou art prime architect, my heart divine that thou on earth hast prospered. Straight I felt that I must after thee with this thy son and unite us three. Thou hast achieved our liberty. Thine now is all this world. Thy virtue hath won what thy hands built did not, thy wisdom gained. With war, what odds have lost, and fully avenged our foil in heaven, here thou shalt monarch reign.
Dear daughter, and thou, son and grandchild both, amply have ye merited of me, of all the infernal empire that so near heaven's door, triumphal with triumphal act, have met, and made earth and hell one realm. One realm. one continent of easy thoroughfare. Therefore, while I descend upon your road with ease to my associate powers, then to acquaint with these successes, you two straight down to paradise descend. There, go and exercise dominion. Be strong.
They with speed, their course through thickest constellation held, spreading their mane.
On to the walls of Pandemonium, city and proud seat of Lucifer. There the grand council sat, now expecting each hour their great adventurer from the search of foreign worlds. He through the midst unmarked passed, and ascended his high throne, brighter clad in false glitter. All amazed at that so sudden blaze beheld their mighty chief return. Loud was the acclaim. Forth rushed in haste the great consulting peers, and with like joy congratulate approaching, and with hand, silence, and attention won.
Thrones, dominations, princedoms, virtues, powers, such I declare ye now. Long were to tell what I have done, what accomplished, with what pain suffered thence voyaging to the new created world wherein man placed in paradise. Man I have seduced from his creator. As serpent I have deceived him. And what remains, ye gods, but to up now and enter into full bliss?
A while he stood, expecting their universal shout and high applause, when contrary, on all sides, from innumerable tongues, he hears a dismal, universal hiss.
The sound of public scorn.
He wondered, but not long had leisure. The serpents all as accessories to his bold riot. Dreadful was the din of hissing through the hall, thick swarming now with complicated monsters.
They all him followed to the open fields of hell, where all heaven fallen, wherein to see their glorious chief, now felt themselves changing, like in punishment as in crime.
Thus was, and is, and ever shall be, his applause.
Meanwhile, in paradise, the hellish pair too soon ride. Sin there in her power, and after her death, not yet mounted on his horse.
What thinkest thou of our empire?
To me, thou plungest, all too little seems to stuff this mob.
Therefore, on these herbs, fruits, and flowers feed first, and on each beast next, and fish and fowl, till I, in man residing, infect his thoughts, his looks, his words, his actions, and season him thy last and sweetest prey.
So saying, they both betook to destroy or unimmortal make all things.
See with what heat these dogs of hell advance to waste and havoc yonder world, which we so fair and good created. We suffer them to enter and possess a place so heavenly, but know that we drew them thither, our hellhounds, to lick up the filth which man's polluting sin hath shed on what was pure. Till then, the curse pronounced on earth proceeds. Sun, move, and so shine as may affect the earth with heat
and cold scarce tolerable. Winds be set to confound both sea, air, and shore.
Thunder roll through the dark aerial hall.
Poles of earth be turned twice 10 degrees and more from the sun's axle. Let spring perpetual smile upon the earth.
Now hail and snow and stormy gust.
Seas upturned.
Beast now with beast gain war. Fish with fish and fowl with fowl.
Nor with much dread look upon man, but flee him, or with grim countenance glare upon his passing.
Adam saw already in part these miseries, though hid in gloomiest shade. To sorrow abandoned, and worse, he felt within.
Miserable or happy? Is this the end of this new glorious world? And me, so late the glory of thy glory. Yet well, if here would end the misery. Why am I mocked with death, and lengthened out to deathless pain? Gladly would I be mortality my sentence. There I should find rest, safe secure. No more would his terrible voice thunder in my ears. In fear of worse, to me and to my offspring, torment me with cruel expectation. Patrimony I must leave for the sons, who were able to waste it all away myself, and leave ye none. But from me, what can proceed but all corrupt, both mind and will depraved? How can they stand in sight of God? First and last on me only, all the blame mights do, found wish.
Adam!
Out of my sight, thou serpent! Thy name best begins thee with him lead. Thyself is false and hateful. When did God, creator wise, create at last this novelty on earth, this fair defect of nature? This mischief had not then befallen!
Forsake me not thus, Adam. Witness heaven with love sincere and reverence in my heart I bear thee. By suppliance I beg and clasp thy knees. Bereave me not. While yet we live, yet one scarce hour perhaps, between us let there be peace. On me exercise not thy hatred for this misery befallen. Both have sinned, but thou against God only, I against God and thee. And to the place of judgment shall return. There with my cries to heaven, that all the sentence from thy head may light on me only.
Alas, if prayers could alter high decrees, I to that place would speak before thee, that on my head all might be visited, thyself all forgiven. But rise, let us no more contend nor blame each other.
Adam, sole contentment of my heart. Miserable it is to be the cause of others' misery. Our loins shall bring into this woeful world a wretched race, that at last food for death must be life. In thy power it remains, to prevent this race unblessed yet unbegot. Childless thou art, childless remain, that death may be deceived his blood, and in us two be forced to satisfy his ravenous maw. But if thou findest it difficult to abstain from love's embraces sweet, then let us at once ourselves conceive being short. Let us seek death, were he not found, supply his office on ourselves. Destruction or destruction to destroy.
Eve, the contempt of life seems to argue in thee something more sublime and excellent than what thy mind contemns. Self-destruction sought implies not thy contempt, but anguish and regret. Let us seek some safer resolution, which methinks I have in view. No more be mention of violence against ourselves, nor willful barrenness, that cuts us off from hope, savors only spite against God, and his just yoke laid on our necks. Remember with what mild and gracious temper he both heard and judged, without wrath or reviling. We expected immediate dissolution, which we thought was meant by death that day. When lo, pains only in childbearing were foretold for thee, and bringing forth soon recompensed with joy, fruit of thy womb. On me, the curse's slow glance to the ground. By labor I must earn my bread. What harm? Praise him. My labor will sustain me. His hands clothed us, unworthy, pitying while he judged. How much more will his ear be open, and his heart to pity inclined if we pray him? What better can we do than to prostrate, fall before him reverent, and there humbly confess our faults and his pardon beg?
They forthwith to the place prepared him, where he judged them. Prostrate fell before him, and humbly confessed their faults, and pardon begged with tears.
See, Father, these sighs and prayers, which in this golden censer with incense I, thy priest, before thee bring, fruits of contrition sown in his heart.
Therefore, bend we ear to supplication. Hear his sighs, unskillful with what words to pray.
Let me interpret for him. Accept me, and from these receive the sweet smell of peace. Let him dwell before thee, his days numbered, till death yield him to a better life, where with me all are redeemed may dwell in joy and peace. One with me, as I with thee am one.
All thy request for man except his son. But longer in this paradise of Eden to dwell than we must forbid. Eject them tainted now, and purge him off, till heaven and earth renew.
Sons, angelic host, behold, man has become to know both good and evil. He repents now, prays and sorrows contrite. But lest his now bolder hand take up the tree of life also, and eat and live forever, to remove him I decree, and send him from the garden forth, to till the ground from which he was taken.
Michael, this my behest have thou in charge. Take from among the cherubim thy choice of flaming warriors. Haste thee, and from the paradise of God drive out the sinful pair. Yet all terror hide, for I behold them softened, and with tears.
But first, let us come to Adam and his consort one last time in that place of origin.
There to reveal what shall be. That though sorrowing, they go in peace.
Adam,
Lord,
hail to thee, Eve, rightly called mother of mankind.
expect me now good tidings, perhaps new laws to be observed?
Adam, thy prayers are heard, thy repentance is well heard.
But to live longer in this garden permits not. To send thee forth we have come, to till the ground from which thou wast taken.
Unexpected stroke, worse than death. Beside the sleepy paradise, the happy walks and shades, fit haunt of gods, where I'd hope to spend, quiet though sad, the respite of that day that must be mortal to us both. How shall we breathe in other air less pure?
Lament not, Eve, but patiently resign what justly thou hast lost. Thy going is not lonely, with thee goes thy husband. Him to follow thou art bound, and where he resides, think there thy native soil.
Princes, gladly hast thou told thy message. If prayers incessant could hopes alter high decrees, I would not cease to weary you with my assiduous cries. But prayers against high decrees no more avail than breath blown against the wind, one stifling back. Therefore, to your great bidding, I submit. If this most afflicts me, it's from your glorious face I shall be hid. deprived your blessed countenance. Here I could frequent place to place and worship, until my sons were late. Under this tree stood visible. Among these pines his voice I heard. And at this fountain, with him I talked. In yonder netherworld, where shall I seek your bright appearances, or footstep trace?
Adam, thou knows that all in heaven and earth is ours. Not this rock only, but our presence fills land and sea and air, and every kind that lives.
But come, ere thou from hence depart, know that we are come to show thee what shall come to pass in future days to thee and thy offspring. Good with bad expect to hear.
Adam, ascend this hill. Let Eve here sleep below, while thou to foresight wakes.
Now, open thy eyes, behold the effects which thy original sin hath wrought, to these to spring from thee, who never touched the fruit, nor conspired with the snake, nor sinned thy sin, but from that sin derived corruption.
Know then that sin will reign among them, as of thee begot. Therefore was my law given, that when they see law, they will discover sin, unremoved, save by the blood of bulls and goats. Blood, that they may conclude some blood more precious must be paid.
So law appears imperfect.
Yet given up to yield them to a better covenant. Therefore, behold, come Moses, deliverer of the law, Joshua, judges first, then kings, from which the royal stock of David shall spring.
And from David there shall arise a king, and of his kingdom there will be no end.
Prophet of glad tidings, finisher of utmost hope, how clear I understand. Henceforth I learn that to obey is best, to love with fear only God, to walk as ever in his presence, to obey his divine providence. I now acknowledge my Redeemer, ever blessed.
Come, go awaken Eve.
Whence thou returnest, and whither whence I know. For God is also in sleep, and dreams advise. With sorrowed heart, wearied I fell asleep. But now lead on, for thou art to me all things under heaven. As further consolation I carry hence, that though by me all is lost, by me the promised seed shall restore.
Now too nigh the archangel stood, as evening mist risen from a river over the marsh glides. Advanced he, the brandished sword of God blazed before him, fierce as a comet.
They, looking back, beheld paradise so late their happy scene, and some natural tears they dropped, but wiped them soon. The world was all before them, from which to choose their place, and providence be their guide.
So hand in hand, with wandering steps and slow, from Eden they took their way. let him rule over the earth, and fish, and fowl, and beast of the field. I totally screwed that up.